Let me paint you a picture of Maple Grove Estates. From the outside, it looked like every family's dream. Perfectly manicured lawns, kids playing in cul-de-sacs, white fences gleaming under the sun. The kind of place where everyone smiled and waved like they were in a 1950s sitcom. But underneath that shiny surface, a nest of rules stricter than a prison yard, all enforced by one woman who thought she was the queen of the suburbs, Karen Whitmore. I'm Ryan Callahan. Been living on the edge of the development for 15 years, on land my grandfather homesteaded back in the day. Most folks here moved in for the community feel. I stayed because this patch of earth was in my blood. My grandfather, Old Man Elias, built our property line fence with his own 2 hands back in 1928. Every cedar post was cut, stripped, and planted with the kind of love only a man who survived the Great Depression could put into wood and nails. That fence wasn't decoration. It was history. It marked where our family had stood its ground for nearly a century. The morning it happened, I was on my porch nursing my first coffee when I heard it. That god-awful roar of heavy machinery ripping through the quiet. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. I slammed the mug down and sprinted toward the property line, boots pounding dirt. There she was, Karen, standing like some kind of conquering general in her starched white blouse and oversized sunglasses, arms crossed, watching a yellow bulldozer chew my grandfather's fence into splinters. The operator didn't even look guilty, just doing his job. "Stop that thing right now," I yelled, voice cracking with pure rage. The bulldozer slowed. Karen turned, that smug little smile playing on her lips like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Oh, Ryan," she said in that fake sweet tone that made my skin crawl. "This old eyesore finally had to go. It violates Section 4.2 of the HOA covenants, aesthetic uniformity. We gave you plenty of notices." "Notices?" I barked, stepping right up to her. "Those were polite suggestions I ignored because this fence is older than your entire McMansion and twice as valuable. My grandfather built this with his bare hands. You don't get to just erase family history because it doesn't match your little Pinterest board." Karen tilted her head, enjoying every second of my fury. "Rules are rules, dear. You signed the papers when you joined our lovely community. Or did you forget? History doesn't exempt anyone from standards." I pulled out my phone, snapping photos of the destruction as fast as I could. Wood chips flying everywhere, the scent of fresh cedar filling the air like a funeral. "You're trespassing and destroying private property. This is vandalism." "Vandalism?" She laughed, actually laughed. "The HOA board voted unanimously. We're improving property values for everyone. You should be thanking us." The bulldozer operator looked nervous, shifting in his seat. I pointed at him. "Turn it off, or you're both getting sued." He killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening except for the blood pounding in my ears. Karen stepped closer, perfume thick and cloying. "You can fight this if you want, Ryan. But we both know how it ends. The HOA always wins. People like you either comply, or you leave." As she strutted back to her white SUV, heels clicking on the gravel like victory drums, I stood there staring at the wreckage. Memories flooded in. 10-year-old me holding nails while Grandpa Elias hammered, telling me, "A fence isn't just wood, boy. It's your line in the sand. Never let anyone cross it without a fight." This wasn't just wood. Karen had just declared war on my family. I wasn't going to cry about it. I was going to make her pay. But not today. Today I started watching, documenting, and smiling to myself because she had no idea what kind of storm she just invited. By noon the next day, the official HOA letter arrived in my mailbox like a slap in the face. Notice of violation and restoration fee. $3,000 due immediately for unauthorized historic structure removal and landscape compliance. Karen's signature sat at the bottom in perfect cursive, like she'd enjoyed every keystroke. I crumpled it, marched straight to her perfect colonial at the end of the cul-de-sac, and rang the bell so hard I thought it might break. She opened the door in yoga pants and a smug grin, iced latte in hand. "Ryan, to what do I owe this pleasure?" "Cut the act, Karen. You bulldozed my grandfather's fence, and now you're billing me for the privilege? That's not enforcement. That's extortion with a side of hypocrisy." She sipped her latte, eyes sparkling behind those ridiculous glasses. "Oh, honey, the board approved it. Section 7.1 clearly states any non-conforming element must be corrected at the owner's expense. You had 6 months of warnings. 6 months. Most residents would have replaced it with nice vinyl by now. 6 months of passive-aggressive emails while I was working 2 jobs and raising my daughter alone after her mom left. That fence was the only thing left of my grandpa's legacy in this cookie-cutter hell. And you, the woman who moved here 5 years ago from God knows where, decided it had to die. Karen's smile didn't waver. We all signed the covenants for the greater good. Property values are up 12% since I took over as president. You're welcome. I laughed bitterly right in her face. Greater good? Last month you fined Mrs. Alvarez $150 for having her American flag out on Flag Day because the pole was 2 inches too tall. You fined Dave for his trash bins visible for 43 minutes past noon. This isn't a neighborhood, Karen. It's your personal little kingdom where everyone bows or pays. She closed the door halfway. If you don't like it, Ryan, the market's hot. Sell and move somewhere less regulated. I walked away before I said something that would get me arrested, but inside I was boiling. That night I knocked on Dave's door 2 houses down. He opened it with a beer in hand and a tired look. Heard what she did to your fence. Sorry, man. Sorry won't cut it. How many others has she hit? He pulled me inside. Everyone. Lisa got cited for her kids' bikes on the driveway. Old Mr. Jenkins lost his bird feeder because it wasn't aesthetically approved. She's not enforcing rules. She's feeding her ego. But nobody fights back. She controls the board. We sat on his porch and I showed him the photos. I'm not rolling over. I'm collecting every violation letter, every fine, every petty complaint. When I have enough, we're taking her down. Dave clinked his beer against mine. Count me in. And I know at least 8 more neighbors ready to talk. But Ryan, be careful. She plays dirty. I smiled in the dark. So do I. But smarter. Over the next week, I quietly visited every house on the block, listening to stories that made my blood run cold. The single mom threatened with liens over dandelions in her yard. The veteran whose flagpole was deemed offensive. All of them terrified of Karen's next letter. Meanwhile, the HOA sent me another fine, this time for emotional distress caused by my public outburst. I laughed out loud reading it. Karen thought she was winning. She had no clue I was building a case file thicker than her rule book. 3 weeks later, the tension was thick enough to choke on. My backyard looked like a war zone. Bare posts where the cedar fence once stood, my daughter Sophie asking every night why I mean Mrs. Whitmore took Grandpa's fence. I told her we were fixing it, but inside I was raging. Then came the twist that changed everything. I was at the county records office digging for old HOA minutes when the bulldozer operator, a quiet guy named Mike who'd been fired after the job, slid into the seat next to me. You Ryan Callahan? The fence guy? Yeah. What? He pulled out a flash drive. Because Karen paid me cash under the table to do that job without a full board vote. And get this, she used HOA emergency funds meant for community landscaping to cover my invoice. I kept copies. Plus, her own backyard, that fancy infinity pool in the new addition, none of it has permits. Violates every aesthetic rule she shoved down our throats. My hands shook as I plugged in the drive. There it was, emails, bank transfers, photos of Karen's illegal deck that looked exactly like the non-conforming style she destroyed on my property. She'd been skimming HOA money for her own palace while preaching uniformity to the rest of us. I drove straight to Dave's. We got her. Not just the fence, she's been stealing from all of us. We called an emergency neighbor meeting in my garage. 8 families showed up, faces lit by flashlights like some underground resistance. Lisa brought printouts of her own finds. She told me my flower beds were too ethnic. Ethnic? It's marigolds. I laid out the evidence on the workbench. Karen violated her own bylaws. No vote for the bulldozer. Misuse of funds. Her house is the biggest eyesore in Maple Grove if you actually apply the rules. We're not just getting my fence back. We're ending her reign. The room erupted in shocked whispers, turning to angry cheers. Old Mr. Jenkins slammed his cane. That woman's been playing God while breaking every commandment she wrote. But the real kicker came from Mara, a former board member who'd quit in disgust. She stepped forward with bank statements. I saw the transfers. Karen funneled $18,000 into her home improvement while fining us for $50 mailbox violations. She's not a president. She's a thief in yoga pants. We spent the night copying everything, planning. I felt that quiet rage turn cold and sharp, the same feeling my grandpa had when he built that fence against all odds. Karen thought she was untouchable. She was about to learn what happens when the little people finally connect the dots. By sunrise, we had a folder that could bury her. The twist wasn't just proof. It was the realization that her entire empire was built on the same hypocrisy she weaponized against us. The queen had no clothes, and we were about to parade her naked down Main Street. We didn't storm the board meeting with pitchforks. We did something better, poetic, public, and perfectly legal in that gray area where accidents happen. The wild horses that still roamed the hills behind Maple Grove had been my grandpa's old friends. He'd fed them hay in dry summers. They trusted the Callahan whistle. Karen's backyard backed right up to the open space where the herd grazed every dawn. Dave kept her distracted at a fake garden tour consultation, while I whistled softly from the tree line, laying a trail of sweet feed straight toward her pristine lawn. The lead mare lifted her head, ears pricked. Then the whole herd, 30 strong, started moving like a brown river of justice. Karen was mid-sentence bragging about her award-winning roses when the ground began to shake. She turned just as the first horse stepped onto her perfect turf. Hooves tore through flower beds. One knocked over her $800 ceramic fountain. Another started munching the roses like they were free salad. "What the you know? Get out!" Karen screamed, waving her arms like a maniac while neighbors poured out of houses filming on phones. I strolled up casual as could be, arms crossed. "Well, Karen, looks like nature decided to enforce some rules of its own. Funny how those wild horses don't care about your covenants." Her face went purple. "You did this. This is trespassing, animal cruelty. I'll sue." "Trespassing? Same thing you said when your bulldozer crossed my line. But hey, at least the horses didn't send me a $3,000 bill afterward." The herd spread out, trampling her award-winning lawn into mud. Kids were laughing from the sidewalk. Dave pretended to call animal control while secretly live-streaming. Lisa yelled, "Hey Karen, does this violate Section 4.2? Looks pretty non-uniform now." I whistled again, sharp and clear, and the horses slowly followed the feed trail back toward the hills, leaving behind hoof prints, broken gnomes, and one very destroyed garden party. Karen stood in the wreckage, mascara running, screaming at the cameras. "This is war. You'll all regret this." I leaned in close so only she could hear. "No, Karen. You already do. Check your email. The board just got an interesting package." As I walked away to applause from half the neighborhood, I felt that ha-he rising, the sweet taste of watching the bully finally taste her own medicine. Videos were already blowing up the community chat. Karen wasn't just exposed. She was humiliated on camera for the entire suburb to see. The emergency HOA meeting 2 nights later was standing room only. Karen showed up in a power suit, eyes wild, demanding order. But the room smelled like victory already. I stood at the podium with my thick folder and a USB drive. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've all suffered under one woman's reign of terror. But today I have proof she didn't just target me. She stole from every single one of us." I clicked the projector. Bank records, emails, photos of her illegal pool, the bulldozer invoice paid with community funds. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's voice cracked. "This is fabricated. Lies." Mara stood up. "I quit the board because of you, Susan. These are your own signatures." Then the videos of the horse invasion played on loop. Karen shrieking, roses disappearing, fountain toppling. The room erupted in laughter. Dave called for the vote. Who wants Karen removed as president? Every hand shot up except hers and one terrified ally. The new board chair looked at her coldly. "You're out, Susan. Effective immediately. And you'll personally cover Ryan's fence rebuild plus every fine you've ever issued. Plus restitution for misused funds." Karen tried one last snarl. "You'll never prove any of this in court." I smiled. "Already did. Sheriff's office is waiting outside with the civil suit. Oh, and the county just revoked your unpermitted pool permit." She stormed out to boos and cheers, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. 2 months later, her for sale sign went up. Last we heard, she moved to some retirement community where the rules were even stricter. Ironic, right? I rebuilt the cedar fence with help from every neighbor who'd suffered. Grandpa Elias's spirit was in every nail. Sophie ran her hand along the new posts and whispered, "Grandpa would be proud." The neighborhood breathed again. Flags flew freely. Kids left bikes on driveways. Dandelions bloomed without fear. We weren't just a community anymore. We were free. And every time I sit on my porch watching the wild horses graze the hills, I remember, sometimes the only way to beat a bully is to let a little wild justice run right through their perfect little world. If you've ever had a Karen try to bulldoze your life, stand up, gather your proof, and never be afraid to whistle and let the horses run. Justice isn't always quiet, but damn, it feels good when it finally arrives.